Welcome back to the Hoosier High School Huddle. My name is Craig Crash Collins, and it is finally time. Semi-state weekend is here. Semi-state Saturday, I guess, is the more accurate description there, because Saturday is going to be an insane game. It's going to be an insane day of games, excuse me. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, the NCAA tournament started today, which, by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day if you're watching on the live over on 3C Media, YouTube. Happy belated St. Patrick's Day if you're watching this after the fact or listening to the podcast version. The NCAA tournament started as well. So, here's what you do for Saturday. You get a TV, you get another monitor, and you just watch basketball. That's what you do all day. You've got the NCAA tournament, you've got semi-state games coming up on Saturday, and it's going to be just an entire full slate of basketball. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to all start at 1 p.m. Eastern. You've got Gary for the 1A bracket. You've got number 1 Gary 21st Century. They're 23-4 versus number 11 Lafayette Central Catholic. They're 19-9. That's in Lafayette. They also at 1 o'clock the 3A semi-state with Beech Grove 20-6 versus number 4 Sullivan 25-2. That is in Washington. 3 p.m., you're going to find out who is going to play for the 4A state final. You've got number 1 Chesterton 28-0 versus Kokomo 19-7, and you've got number 8 Cathedral 24-6 versus number 12 Bloomington North 24-3. Then at 4 p.m. Eastern, you're 1A in the 1A semi-state, number 10 Jac-Cen-Del. They're 22-5. They take on number 2 North Daviess. They're 25-3 in Seymour. And then in the 2A game, number 3, Central Noble, 27-2 versus Carroll, Flora, 24-1 in Elkhart. And then the night games, you've got 2A. In 2A, you've got number 9, Eastern Hancock, 22-5 versus Providence, 19-6 in Seymour. And in 3A, you've got number 2, Mishawaka, Marian, 23-3 versus Leo, 21-5. That's in Elkhart. So a full slate of games. It's going to be a fantastic day of basketball. And what we're going to do, we had some gimmicks the last couple of weeks where we did, 64 sectional previews in 64 minutes. We did a seeding of all the teams in each class, 1 through 16, in honor of Selection Sunday. But this week is just pure breaking down games, giving analysis, letting you know who to expect to move on, what to expect from those games, and we're just going to go basically through the afternoon of basketball and break down each contest. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. Starting off the 1 o'clock games, it is the Gary 21st Century Cougars versus the Lafayette Central Catholic Knights. The Cougars are 6th in the state, second in 1A in scoring with 70 points per game. We mentioned that last week. And we also mentioned that they have 3 top 40 scorers in the class. They have Ashton Williamson. He's 6th in scoring in the class. He put up 24 points in the regional final versus Triton. He had a double-double because he did also have 12 assists. DJ Moss, who's 38th in scoring in the class, he put up 12 points, 10 rebounds in the regional final. Quentin Floyd had 23 points, 12 rebounds in the regional finals. Yes, you heard that correctly. All 3 of those players had double-doubles in the nightcap on Saturday. So what an amazing night of basketball for that team. The Knights, on the other hand, limit their opponents to 51 points per game. They're 12-2 when holding their opponents to 51 points or less, including 4 of 5 games this postseason. They held every sectional opponent to under 40 points. So what we're going to do with each matchup, we're going to give a key to the game as well as our prediction, as well as my prediction, kind of like we're going to do next week, B. Scott and I, with the state finals predictions. So key to the game for Lafayette Central Catholic and Gary 21st Century. LCC needs to be able to slow down Gary's scores in order to be successful, which isn't impossible. They held Liberty Christian, the 3rd best scoring offense in 1A, which is the 9th best in Indiana, an offense averaging 68 points per game to 45 points in the regional finals. So this Lafayette Central Catholic defense can slow down prolific offensive teams, but with all of that said, I just think Gary's offense is unlike any LCC has seen throughout the season, including the tournament, and I think the Cougars advance. So give me Gary 21st Century moving on. Also at 1 o'clock, the Beech Grove Hornets against the Sullivan Golden Arrows. We talked about Sullivan's Randy Kelly last week a bit. He averages 20 points per game, which is good enough for 10th in 3A. He was our 3C Media Player of the Week for the regional rounds, so congratulations to him. And what a regional he had. I mean, he hits the 3 at the buzzer in the regional semis and then goes off for 33 points in the regional final against Bossy. Also, we mentioned last week how Sullivan is 6th in points per game, scoring 66 points a contest. They're 4th in field goal percentage, shooting 53% from the floor, and 8th in three-point percentage, shooting 37% from beyond the arc. So this is a very good shooting team. I mean, obviously, these teams are all good, as you're getting down to this part of the tournament, but Sullivan is one of the more prolific offenses still left in this tournament. Excuse me. Beech Grove wins their first regional in program history. They average 65 points per game, 7th in 3A behind Sullivan. They have a top 50 scorer of their own in Anthony Ball. In their win over Brownstown Central in the regional semifinals, Anthony Ball had 18 points, 9 rebounds. Jeremiah Tate had 12 points. Damon Tompkins had 11 points, so he was 3 of 4 from beyond the arc. And in their win over Danville, Jaleel Edwards had 18 points. Jeremiah Alexander had 15 points. And Anthony Ball also had 15.6 rebounds. So, as far as keys to the game go, both teams are similar when it comes to scoring and depth. So whichever team's depth shines brighter will be the team that moves on. I mean, you have Randy Kelly and then a lot of other supplementary pieces. Beech Grove has a plethora of different scorers, as you noticed in that kind of recap there. They have a bunch of different guys that can do it. Looking at these two teams, I'm actually, as much as I want to go with Sullivan here, I'm going to go with Beech Grove. I'm going with the Hornets. It's close, but, getting a chance to look into the numbers a little bit more, I do like the Hornets. Sullivan has played down in terms of class 11 times, whereas Beech Grove has only played down in class 5 times. So meaning these two teams are 3A. It means Sullivan has played 1A and 2A opponents 11 times. Beech Grove has played 1A and 2A opponents 5 times. So if we talk about battle tested, if we talk about being able to, play, equal talent or higher, and I know that, class doesn't necessarily equal the talent you have on your team, but we talk about 3A, 3A caliber lineups and up, Beech Grove is more battle tested. So I'm going to go with the Hornets there. 3 o'clock games. Like I said, this is where we're going to find out who plays for the 4A state final. You have the Chesterton Trojans against the Kokomo Wildcats. Chesterton wins their first regional in school history. In the regionals, in the semis versus South Bend Adams, Tyler Parrish had 21 points. He was 5 of 11 from beyond the arc. Travis Grayson had 17 points and 10 assists. Then in the final against number 6 Penn. Remember, when we did the seeding of 4A, Chesterton and Penn were 1 and 2 for me, and it lived up to the hype. It was a close game. Grayson had 22 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. They also, the Chesterton defense also held Marcus Burton, the number 2 scorer in 4A, to 20 points. He's averaging 27. So I know that that's not far off, but they were still able to slow down a great score in Marcus Burton. They are the number 1 team in the tournament in 4A. They are the number 1 team in 4A entering the tournament. They're undefeated in the state's highest class with wins over Homestead and Noblesville, and they average a 22-point margin of victory this season. So you look at that and you're like, man, how can Kokomo compete with that? How are they going to be able to keep it up? Kokomo is able to win their first regional since 2011. They knocked off number 17 Harrison and number 14 Lafayette Jeff in the sectional, and then Fort Wayne Snyder and Westfield, who neither of which are ranked, but are still laced with talent. When you talk about Carson Jenkins for Fort Wayne Snyder and Braden Smith for Westfield, these are talent-loaded rosters that they've been able to beat, and that's who they defeated in in the regional en route to their semi-state berth. They are shooting 51% from the floor throughout the tournament so far. 6 or more threes in 2 of their 4 games, so they are shooting incredibly well. They also have a 6'10 top 50 scorer in 4A and 4A Badunga. He's averaging 20 points per game in the state tournament. So as far as keys to the game go, Kokomo has held 3 of their 4 tournament opponents to less than 50 points. Last week's opponent, Snyder, typically shoots 46% from the field. They shot 30% versus Kokomo. Westfield typically shoots 47%. They shot 45% versus Kokomo. So, I mean, you think, okay, well, that's not that much of a difference. It's the only team to score over 50 versus Kokomo, so congratulations. You found the one game where Kokomo allowed more than 50 points, and the Wildcats also had 64 points of their own, which is their second highest output of the tournament. So, the one time that they allowed, quite a few, a good amount of points, they were still able to offensively keep up. So, if Kokomo can control the paint, they're 5th in 4A in defensive rebounds and 2nd in terms of blocks per game, and get going defensively and force Chesterton off their game, I think Kokomo can win. If they can, kind of force Chesterton to win from the perimeter, I think that they've got a good shot, especially limiting them to one shot and done. Don't give them second chance opportunities off of a missed shot. And as much as I want to keep rolling with the undefeated team here, I think I like what the Wildcats have done just a little bit more in the tournament so far. So I'm going with Kokomo. I mean, you talk about knocking off 2 ranked teams in the sectional, and I know they were outside the top 10, but still ranked nonetheless. And then going and beating Westfield, who was my favorite coming out of the sectional, to potentially make a state finals run. And then you talk about Fort Wayne Snyder, who the record doesn't really reflect it, but has a lot of great scorers on that team. I mean, Kokomo has just run the gauntlet, and I'm going with them. I think they've got one more upset in them, so I'm going with Kokomo there. The other 4A game at 3 o'clock is Cathedral, the Fighting Irish versus Bloomington North. Cathedral's run through the tournament, it's been pretty incredible. They're the 8th team in 4A. They defeated number 15 Terre Haute North, number 5 Ben Daviess en route to the regional title. They also defeated number 11 Lawrence North in the sectionals. They're the highest scoring team in 4A. They have Tayshawn Comer, who averages 17 points per game, top 40 in 4A. They also have Jerron Tibbs, who averages 13 points a game, and Xavier Booker, who averages 12 points a game. They shoot 50% from the field, which is 8th in 4A, and 40% from 3-point range, which is 3rd in 4A. So this team can just flat out shoot. They're a very good offensive team. They're going up against a Bloomington North team who won their first regional title since 2014. They've been sort of the cardiac kids through this state tournament run. They won in 2 overtimes versus Columbus North. They won the sectional final over Bloomington South, a game in which the Cougars only scored 32 points. They won that one in overtime, and they defeated Franklin by 6 in the regional final. Their defense has allowed 48 points per game this season, 47 points per game during the tournament, so the defense has been consistent throughout the season and the postseason. So as far as keys to the game go, does Bloomington North have the offense to keep up with Cathedral? And my answer to that is I don't think so. I don't think the Cougars can keep up with the Irish, so give me Cathedral, which sets up a 4A state final of Kokomo versus Cathedral. Moving on to the 4 o'clock games. You've got Jac-Cen-Del, the Eagles, versus North Daviess, the Cougars. The Eagles win their first regional since 2009. They went on to win the state that season. They averaged 66 points per game. They're 8th in 1A in terms of that category, which is also their tournament average. So talk about consistency. They have averaged 66 points pretty much throughout the entirety of the campaign. They do have 2 top 20 scorers in 1A, and Wyatt Day, who's 8th with 21 points per game, and Caleb Simon, who's 20th with 18 points per game. The Cougar defense, though, has been so good for North Daviess. I mean, this defense is just incredible. They're number 3 in the state, the best remaining team in terms of defensive points allowed, 37. They've allowed 31 points per game during the tournament. They held defending champ number 4 Bar Reeve to 29. They held Edinburgh, who's top 10 in scoring in the class, to 37, and they held Borden to 32 in the regional final. So I mean, this defense is just absolutely elite. And I think the biggest question going into this game is, can Jac-Cen-Del, can their offense break through against the North Daviess defense? And, I'm not exactly seeing it, and honestly, really, very selfishly, I want to see the scores of Gary 21st versus the North Daviess defensive approach. So give me the Cougars. Give me North Daviess moving on. That sets up a 1A state final of Gary 21st Century and North Daviess. Moving on to the Central Noble Cougars versus the Carroll Flora Cougars. So here's my obligatory "the Cougars are going to advance" joke. We all know that that's coming. Central Noble notches their first regional since 2001. They're number 3 in 2A. They defeated 2A defending champion Fort Wayne Blackhawk 58-53 in overtime in the regional final. They have a Mr. Basketball candidate and Wisconsin signee in Connor Esigian. Esigian has averaged 27 points per game, 11th on the Indiana all-time scoring list with 2,483 points. So he's obviously, barring anything super crazy, is likely to get to 2,500. He shoots 43% from three-point range and scored 77 points between both games last Saturday. So if you're doing the math, math has never been my strong suit, but pretty easy to see that that's almost a 40-point average. Central Noble is 27-2. Which is the second highest, and they have the second highest point differential behind Eastern Hancock with 22 points. And in the game versus Fort Wayne Blackhawk, that was the only game in which Central Noble did not win by double digits. So, and I think that's just in the tournament though. So Central Noble, has just been this insane force all season long. They go up against Carroll of Flora, who wins their first regional, and they have been rolling through the tournament. In their sectional opener, they won by 2 points over Fountain Central, but since then, all other games have been decided by 11-plus points. They are 6th in the state in point differential, plus 18. Jake Skinner averaged 21 points during the regional. Chris Huerta had 15 in the regional final over Monroe Central. And the key to the game, kind of like the last few games here, is can the Carroll Flora defense shut down Connor Esigian? Oh, because first of all, let me take a moment to say our obligatory. You know your team better than we do here at the Hoosier High School Huddle. So if we miss anything, if we don't have something quite right, let us know down in the comments. And also, it's our obligatory, if you don't put stats on max preps, it makes it really hard to try to weed through these teams and figure out who is the best and who and make predictions on the game. So if you're out there, you're AD, whoever, hell, hire me. I'll come, I'll come, put the stats on max preps for you. It makes it a whole lot easier, and that's how guys like, Connor Esigian, that's how he kind of comes to the forefront, at least as far as I'm concerned. I didn't know quite the caliber of player he was, and he is, or caliber of player he is, and he is a force. But Carroll Flora, like I said, if their defense can shut down Central Noble and Connor Esigian, they've got a chance in the regionals. They held Rensselaer Central, who averages 54 points to 49, so that's not super crazy, but the kicker is that they held Monroe Central, who averages 53 points to 23. So that's pretty incredible, but my prediction is that Esigian is the best player that Carroll has played in the tournament, and while Carroll is a top 50 team in terms of defensive points allowed, Central Noble is a top 25 team in that category. So Central Noble has the better offense and defense, and so that's why they're my pick to move on. So Central Noble advances to the state finals. The 6 o'clock games. You've got Eastern Hancock, the Royals, versus Providence, the Pioneers. And I want to give a shout out, to Providence, because I had them in my seeding. I had them as an 11 seed. I think that's the lowest seed. Maybe Kokomo was also 11 or 12, but I think Kokomo was 12, so they're the second lowest seed that I had, as far as teams that advanced this far, and so shout out to them. That's what March is all about. The Royals are in their first semi-state since 2003. They're another team that has rolled through the tournament so far. Their only game decided by 10 points or less was in the regional final versus University, and they have the highest point differential in the state with 22 points. And oh, by the way, they're 25th in Indiana in defensive points allowed, with allowing 43 points per contest. So, pretty good all-around team. They're third in 2A in points per game, averaging 66 points per game. In the regional semis versus Southmont, Jacob and Silas Spalding went off for 35 of the team's 63 points. They went 7 of 13 from three-point range. The Royals shot 46% from beyond the arc. In the regional final versus University, Landon O'Neill, a top 50 scorer in the class, averaging 17 points per game. He had 24. Jacob Spalding had 17. The Royals, as a team, shot 55% from beyond the arc, 38% from three on the season, fourth in 2A. So, they in both games shot better from beyond the arc than they typically do on the season. So that's pretty incredible. So they, a very uncharacteristic game in those regional games, and their shooters really got hot. The Pioneers, they knock off number 5 Linton Stockton in the regional semis, and then they outlast Forest Park in the finals to capture their first regional title since 2016. They held the Miners to 47 points, and Linton Stockton typically averages 59. They held Forest Park to 37 points, their lowest output since 2018-2019. So in a few seasons, Forest Park hadn't been held to less than 37, hadn't been held to 37 points or less, and that's what happened, in the regional final for Providence Pioneers. Forest Park averaged 56 points per game. So, key to the game, Eastern Hancock, their offense needs to either start fast or finish strong. And what I mean by that is that against University, the Royals trailed by 5 at halftime, then proceeded to outscore University 18-8 in the third and 26-16 in the second half. So, while it looked like maybe University was going to pull the upset, well, here comes Eastern Hancock. The shooters got hot, and they were able to keep going. Kind of a 1A key to the game is for Eastern Hancock to, continue shooting well from beyond the arc. Because, you have a couple of games like you do in the regionals, and you kind of get into that mindset of like, okay, we're really hot from three-point right now. And as, the saying goes, you live by the three, you die by the three. And that's what they are in danger of doing. Should they, not be as on point as they were last Saturday. So, my prediction, I think the Royals shooters stay hot and have the defense to create separation. The separation they need to beat the Pioneers. That sets up a 2A state final of Central Noble and Eastern Hancock. The final game, Mishawaka Marian. Mishawaka Marian, the Knights versus the Leo Lions. The Knights advanced their first semi-state since 2012. Deagle and Sullivan, he's a top 40 scorer in 3A, averaging 17 points per game. He had 26 points and 6 rebounds versus Lighthouse CPA in the regional semis. Richard Brooks had 15 points per game. He's another top 40 scorer in 3A. He had 22 of the team's 39 points in the regional final versus Culver Academies. The Knights are a top 10 in the class in points per game, top 5 in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. They shot below average from beyond the arc in the regionals. However, their point differential is plus 17, which is 8th in the state. As far as Leo goes, they returned for their second straight semi-state, their second in program history. So they made the state finals last year and lost. They come back again this year. They've held every opponent to less than 45 points. They are in the, I believe that's just in the state tournament run. They have a top 20. They have a top 25 point differential. They're plus 14. They defeated number 3 Northwood and number 7 Norwell in the regionals. Norwell averaged 60 points per game. They were held to just 39 versus Leo. Northwood averaged 56 points per game. The Leo Lions held them to 43. 3 of their 5 losses for Leo also came to 4A schools, and another one to one of the best teams in 2A, although they were eliminated as well this weekend in Fort Wayne Blackhawks. So, key to the game, the Leo defense needs to slow down the Knights' shooters. Culver held Mishawaka Marian to less than 40 points for the first time all season. It's the only game decided by a single digit for the Knights' entire season. So it's not like it can't be done. The defense for Leo can slow down Mishawaka Marian, and that's what they're going to have to do if they want to keep up and potentially advance to their second consecutive state final. But my prediction, I said the winner of the John Glenn Mishawaka Marian game in the sectional final was for the state title, and I'm sticking to that, which sets up a 3A state final of Beech Grove and Mishawaka Marian. So there you have it. That's all the ins and outs, the ones and twos of the Semistate Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm very excited to see what happens in these games. So finally, the state finals predictions. I've got in 1A, North Daviess against Gary 21st Century. In 2A, I've got Eastern Hancock versus Central Noble. In 3A, I have Beech Grove versus Mishawaka Marian. And in 4A, I have Kokomo versus Cathedral. So best of luck to all the teams this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that will do it for this week's edition of the Hoosier High School Huddle. Thank you guys all for listening. Remember, you can follow us, 3C Media, on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. Go to our YouTube channel if you're not already there. If you're listening on the podcast, go over to 3C Media. Follow us there. We've got a March Madness breakdown that we just did a couple days ago with Midcourt Madness. That's still up. Also, go follow 3C Media on TikTok as well. You've got some, just 3C Media only content, or some TikTok only content over there. Remember, you can watch us live on the 3C Media YouTube channel as well every Thursday. And remember, you can listen every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Hoosier High School Huddle. Next week, we will have our state finals matchup set, and we will be giving you a breakdown of all the games at Gamebridge here coming up in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be an incredible weekend of basketball. Hope you enjoy it.